Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Piper Report. So, I wanted to go over my library of all the books I've listened to. I really don't read anymore, but I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, mostly because I drive a lot. And yeah, a lot of these are fiction. There's also some nonfiction in here, and we're going to start with the newest ones. So, the ones you see first are the ones that I most recently got. And it should be interesting. I will go over some of my favorites and which ones I recommend, but my most recent purchase is this one, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, A History of Nazi Germany. This one is great so far. It's 57 hours long, which is insanely long, but so far it's great. I recommend it. Crime and Punishment. This one's pretty good as well. It's actually an older one. It's fiction, but it's pretty deep. This one is science fiction. It's pretty interesting. Basically, kind of reminds me of the movie Alien, if you've ever seen that. And then Master of the Senate, Years of Lyndon Johnson, Volume 3. I also have Volume 2 and Volume 1. So far, so good. LBJ was a piece of shit, to the highest degree. Stephen King, a collection of short stories. The Shawshank Redemption is in there, for one. This is also Stephen King. This one's interesting. It's a time travel novel. Basically, he goes back, somebody, and prevents Kennedy from being assassinated. It's pretty interesting. Brave New World, of course, you all know that. You probably read that in high school. Again, Master of the Senate, It, Bag of Bones. This is also Stephen King. That one I tried listening to, but Stephen King narrates it himself, and I don't know. It wasn't that great. I didn't really like it. LBJ again, Story of Philosophy, The Lives and Opinions of Great Philosophers. That one's pretty good for all beginners that are trying to learn philosophy. The Hangman's Daughter. This one's fiction, suspense, murder mystery. It's really gory though, a lot of torture scenes. The Stand by Stephen King. This is one of my favorite books. That's based on a apocalyptic time. The Dark Tower series. All these are Stephen King. I went on a Stephen King binge like last couple months, in case you can't tell. This is my favorite Stephen King, Pet Sematary. It's, I think, his best one. I'm also a huge fan of legal thrillers, especially courtroom dramas. Like, I love courtroom dramas, so you're going to see a lot of those. The Good Lawyer. That one I can't remember, really. I also like apocalyptic ones, so here's one of them. This one I didn't like either. Neon Lawyer. Inner Circle by Brad Meltzer. Brad Meltzer is pretty good. He used to have, like, a conspiracy theory show going over to, like, diving deep into the Freemasons and things of that nature, but the book wasn't super great. More legal dramas. The Gulag Archipelago. This book will mess you up. There's like 4 different volumes of it, and they're insanely long. But in it, it goes over a true story of how communism and socialism will completely destroy a country and destroy you as a person. It's very deep. I mean, anyone who listens or reads these books, the Gulag Archipelago series, you will never be defending communism or Marxism. You can't do it. You can't do it. Some more legal thrillers. These are all good. Sheldon Siegel is a pretty good author for courtroom dramas. If you like courtroom dramas, I highly recommend Sheldon Siegel. As you can see, I bought a lot of them. You'll be able to tell that. If I have like a lot from the same author, especially when they're back to back, which means I bought this one, then I bought this and this, then you know they're good because I want to keep going. Red Dragon, that's based on Hannibal Lecter. Mein Kampf, which is extremely interesting. James Bond, Diamonds Are Forever. The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Now, Machiavelli is, some people say he's a philosopher, but he's intense. He's one of those people that he won't tell you how to get power. Or I shouldn't say that. His teachings aren't about being a great leader. His teachings are about how to get power and how to control the power. It's very, very sinister. That is why you hear the phrase sometimes, oh, that's so Machiavellian of you. Basically saying that's so evil of you, that's so sinister of you. So that's good. Jordan B. Peterson, who I'm a huge fan of, so I had to get his book, 12 Rules of Life. It was interesting. I don't know. I can't remember what this one's about. Oh, this one looks like Assassin. Another one by him. Sherlock Holmes Complete Collection, very good. More Sheldon Siegel ones. John le Carre, great, great, great. He is. Some of you may have seen the movie Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and he wrote that. So some more law books. Yeah, I got a lot of audiobooks, so this might be a little bit. It's like 6 pages long. Dracula by Bram Stoker. This book is amazing. This book is a perfect representation of good and evil. Like, people kind of laugh at it because Dracula, there's like movies from the 1920s kind of, showing it. And back then it was serious, but now we kind of look at it and laugh. But this book is deep. This book is really deep, especially about good and evil. Very good. The Dweller Saga, I can't remember much about that. Can't remember. Reviving America, how repealing Obamacare, replacing the tax code, and reforming the Fed will restore hope and prosperity. It's pretty good. Star Wars, this book sucked. Liberty Defined by Ron Paul, very good. Killing England, Bill O'Reilly, good. The Dan Brown series with Robert Langdon, that's good. Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. If you're ever curious on economics and want a good place to start, this would be the book to do it. Fed Up, an insider's take on why the Federal Reserve is bad for America. This one is really good too, but this one will also, you got to know your banking terms to understand this. I mean, I consider myself quite knowledgeable on the Federal Reserve and banking, and I had trouble keeping up with this one. It's pretty intense. We Are Legion, blah blah. Andrew Jackson, His Life and Times. This book is probably my favorite biography, or my favorite fiction, nonfiction story. Andrew Jackson was amazing. Rediscovering Americanism and the Tyranny of Progressivism by Mark Levine was pretty good. Harry Potter, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Legend, I can't remember what that was. Misery, more Stephen King. Criminal Defense, another courtroom drama. Golden Prey, the Prey series is by John Sanford. It's basically a detective, and he's kind of a badass detective. Kind of like Dirty Harry almost. His name is Lucas Davenport. Very good. Animal Farm by George Orwell. Glenn Beck, Liars, How Progressives Exploit Our Fears for Power and Control. The Circle, there was recently a movie based on this. I tried listening to it. It was kind of bad. So, as you can see by the reviews, terrifying. Reasonable Doubt, Tom Clancy. This actually isn't Tom Clancy, though. This is by Mark Greaney. Tom Clancy died in 2012, I think. So, John Grisham. This book, actually, this may be my favorite nonfiction book. The Creature from Jekyll Island. This one goes deep into the Federal Reserve and into everything. This one's pretty good. A More Perfect Union, an introduction to American government and politics. This one, it's kind of like a textbook, basically. So if you kind of just want to learn about government and, how things are, this would be the book for you. John Sanford again, Tom Clancy again, The Kind Worth Killing. I can't remember what this one's about. More Bill O'Reilly. Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War by Dr. Sebastian Gorka. The Federal Reserve Conspiracy. This one's really good. And it's short, too. It's only 2 hours. So if you want to kind of just understand the Federal Reserve in a really short time, this would be the way to do it. Killing Kennedy, Killing Reagan, The Girl on the Train, Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Gillian Flynn, she's the author of Gone Girl, which you've probably seen the movie. She's really deep. She's really dark, I should say. Requiem, Delirium trilogy. That's apocalyptic. Wasn't that great. Dan Brown again. Vince Flynn. He does kind of like political thrillers. Rick Yancey, The Final Descent. Now these books are said to be like children's books, the Monstrumologist series. But they're dark. They're very, very dark, very gory, very well written. The man can write, and the narrator of these books is great. Rick Yancey is a hell of a writer. I highly recommend those books. Partials, one's good. This is a trilogy. It's apocalyptic again by Dan Wells. The Partial trilogy, I recommend it. Scott Pratt, Dan Brown, Dan Wells, Rick Yancey again, The Last Star. This, you probably maybe heard the movie The Fifth Wave. I guess the movie sucked, but the book is really good. Tom Clancy, the Divergent trilogy, Insurgent, Allegiant, Godfather, more Rick Yancey again, The Green Mile, really good. The Crossing by Michael Connelly, pretty good. Voice of Buddha, the something something. I went into a little Buddhist phase not too long ago. I read like a lot of teachings of Buddha, and it was interesting, but I don't know. 1984 by George Orwell. Hostage Taker, I forgot what that's about. The Martian, it's pretty good. The Girl in the Spider's Web, this frickin' sucked. My favorite books of all time for nonfiction, for fiction, I'm confusing the two, would be The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy. And then the author, Stieg Larsson, died. And this person decided to make a fourth one, basically taking over where the trilogy left off. And he did such a piss poor job. It was so bad, it just makes me mad. Collection of short stories. The Most Dangerous Game, also a short story. Burn of Proof. Scott Turow is pretty good. He does good courtroom dramas, good legal dramas. John Grisham, you've probably heard of him. I can't remember what these are. Losing Faith, this is another courtroom drama. Another courtroom drama. Another courtroom. Runaway Jury. John Grisham. Another courtroom drama. Gone Girl. This one's dark. Really, really dark. A lot of reviews. Look at that. 46,000 reviews. Really good book. More John Sanford. Dust to Dust. Tammy Hogue. She's also pretty dark. A lot of Lee Child. Stephen King again. Lee Child. More James Bond stuff. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. Halfway's done. More Lee Child, more Tom Clancy and Mark Greaney, Tom Clancy, Lee Child, Tom Clancy, James Patterson, Robert Ludlum, The Bourne Ultimatum, Mark Greaney, Tammy Hogue, more Tammy Hogue, Silence of the Lambs, that was really good, by Thomas Harris. More Robert Ludlum, The Bourne Supremacy, more Tammy Hogue. Tammy Hogue's pretty good, and her location is close to mine, so a lot of the landmarks she uses I've been to, so it's kind of interesting also. The Day of the Jackal. This book won the best book in, I think, 1967. The best book in the world. Basically is a story of an assassin who gets hired to kill the King of France, I think it is, or the Prime Minister of France. I can't remember what it was, but... And you follow his story of him going to kill the leader of France. And then you follow the cops trying to catch him. They did base a movie off it called The Jackal with Bruce Willis. It's a lot different story, though. It's set like in contemporary times. So it's like you try to kill a CIA director instead of like the leader of France. So it's a little bit different, but... More John Sanford and Michael Connelly. John Grisham again. Jeff Lindsay, this is Dexter guy who wrote Dexter. He narrates it too. It's really good. I like Dexter. Dexter's one of my favorite shows. Dexter again. More John le Carre, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. More John le Carre. More Dexter, John le Carre. More John Sanford, Tom Clancy, David Baldacci. I used to always listen to David Baldacci when I was younger. When I used to actually rent CDs from the library. And I haven't really much anymore, but he does pretty good stuff. His stuff is kind of detective stuff, so. More John Sanford. I'm a huge John Sanford fan, in case you can't tell. John Sanford. Stephen King again. John Sanford. 50 Shades Darker. Don't judge me. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This is the trilogy I'm talking about. It's my favorite books. 50 Shades of Grey, again, don't judge me. Sum of All Fears, Tom Clancy. And lastly, Tom Clancy, Dan Brown, and Tom Clancy. Of all the Tom Clancy books, this one's my favorite. And this was actually the very first audiobook I've ever bought, without remorse. For those who know about Tom Clancy, you know the name John Clarke. I think John Clarke is one of the greatest literary figures that has ever been written. And this book is how John Clarke became John Clarke. How he became in his position. But it's not really a spy book. A lot of Tom Clancy's books are political thrillers. Basically like Jack Ryan, he's like member of the government, either the CIA or National Security Advisor. And he uses politics, then also military weaponry. It's interesting. This one's different. This one deals with a drug cartel, or not cartel, but a drug ring, and violence and remorse, and well, without remorse, but yeah. Well, there you have it. I think I have around 300 audiobooks now, and these are all pretty good. So if you have any questions, I guess, on any of these books, just let me know in the comments. I know this is pretty long. It's like 15 minutes long, but a lot of these books are good. Some of them are pretty bad, but for the most part, they're good. If you are interested in any legal thrillers, let me know. I can give out some good recommendations, or even nonfiction. Like highly recommend the Andrew Jackson book I showed you, and The Creature from Jekyll Island. Those two are great. Those two are very, very great books. Yeah, and I'm done.